The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council echoed with nervous chittering as Ambassador XDH of the Corvani Empire rose from his serpentine coils. His 6 eyes gleamed with barely contained fury as he addressed the assembly of 1,000 species. Esteemed delegates, XDH's voice carried the weight of ancient authority. We can no longer ignore the human problem. These creatures have expanded beyond their solar system with frightening speed. In merely 2 centuries, they have colonized 47 star systems and established trade routes that threaten the established order. A ripple of agreement swept through the assembly. The ethereal minds of Proxima floated higher, their psychic emanations crackling with concern. The silicon-based architects clicked their approval with metallic appendages. Even the peaceful botanists of the outer rim swayed their flower-crowned heads in reluctant agreement. High Counselor Vexura, her ancient form draped in robes that seemed to contain galaxies, spoke with a voice like distant thunder. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that defy our understanding. Their military conquered the Drachmari in 3 months. The Drachmari, who have been raiding our shipping lanes for millennia. They use primitive kinetic weapons, scoffed General Thrak of the Metallic Collective, his chrome-plated form gleaming under the council chamber's artificial suns. Chemical propulsion and crude nuclear devices. Yet somehow they devastated a fleet that had terrorized a dozen civilizations. Ambassador Silkrin of the Gossamer Web spoke next, her translucent form shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. My scouts report that humans adapt at an unprecedented rate. They reverse engineer our technology within solar cycles, not the millennia we require. They have begun producing shields and energy weapons based on captured Drachmari vessels. The chamber erupted in alarmed discussions. Species that had taken millions of years to develop faster-than-light travel watched in horror as humans mastered it in decades. The very concept of human adaptability challenged everything they understood about evolution and technological progress. There is something else, ZYXDH continued, his voice cutting through the chaos. The humans have begun what they call uplifting primitive species. They are teaching early-stage civilizations to use tools, to think strategically. They claim it is for the greater good, but we know the truth. They are building allies. High Counselor Vexera's form darkened, the galaxies in her robes swirling ominously. In our 15 million years of recorded history, no species has ever successfully uplifted another. The psychological trauma alone should render such attempts impossible. Yet the humans have already guided 3 species to spaceflight capability. The implications were staggering. For eons, the Galactic Council had maintained order through a careful balance of power. Advanced species ruled while primitive ones served or were ignored. The human practice of actually helping other species develop threatened the entire structure of galactic civilization. Their expansion rate is exponential, reported Datamine Quintal, its mechanical voice devoid of emotion, but heavy with significance. Current projections indicate they will control 300 systems within 5 centuries. Their population growth and resource consumption patterns suggest they will require constant expansion. They are, by definition, a plague species. The term sent shudders through the assembly. Plague species were the nightmare of galactic civilization, creatures that consumed everything in their path, growing stronger with each conquest. The last one had been exterminated 40 million years ago, requiring the combined efforts of every spacefaring race in the galaxy. But surely they can be reasoned with, suggested Ambassador Softsong of the Harmonic Empire, her melodious voice carrying hope that few shared. They have shown mercy to defeated enemies. They offer trade agreements rather than simply taking what they want. A facade, ZYXDH hissed. Human mercy is a weapon. They allow defeated enemies to live, so those enemies will serve them. Their trade agreements are designed to create dependency. They are predators disguised as diplomats. General Thrak's chrome surface reflected the chamber's lights as he spoke. My military analysts have studied human warfare extensively. They do not fight like civilized beings. They use psychological warfare, deception, and tactics that violate every galactic convention. They target infrastructure, disrupt supply lines, and, worst of all, they adapt their strategies in real time during battle. The concept was alien to most species present. Galactic warfare had been refined over millions of years into a careful dance of established tactics and honorable engagements. Battles were won through superior technology and overwhelming force, not through the chaotic improvisation that humans seem to prefer. Their soldiers fight without proper command structure, General Thrak continued. Individual human warriors make tactical decisions independently. When their commanders are eliminated, they do not surrender or fall into disarray. They become more dangerous. Ambassador XTH's eyes focused on the council's center, where a holographic display showed human expansion in real time. Red dots representing human colonies spread like spores across the stellar map. The evidence is clear. Humans represent an existential threat to galactic civilization. They cannot be contained through conventional means. Then, what do you propose? High Counselor Vexera asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. We release the hunters. The chamber fell into absolute silence. The suggestion was so profound that even the constant background hum of universal translators seemed to pause. The hunters have been sealed away for good reason. For the first time in the session, Counselor Methagar of the Ancient Preserve spoke. His species was older than recorded history, having witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. His voice carried the weight of eons. The hunters were created to eliminate plague species, but they are not weapons to be deployed lightly. They are forces of nature, barely contained by our strongest prisons. The risk is necessary, ZYXDH insisted. The hunters were designed to adapt, to evolve, to become whatever is needed to eliminate their prey. They have lain dormant for 40 million years, growing stronger in their containment. Against humans, they will become the ultimate predators. High Counselor Vexera stood, her form expanding to fill the chamber center. The consequences of releasing the hunters could extend far beyond the human problem. They were locked away because they became too dangerous, even for their creators. And yet, Ambassador Silkran interjected, the humans grow stronger every day. My latest intelligence reports indicate they have begun experimenting with dimensional technology. If they master interdimensional travel before we act, they will become impossible to contain. The revelation sent shock waves through the assembly. Dimensional technology was theoretical even for the most advanced species. The implications of humans developing such capabilities were terrifying. Datamind Quintal projected new calculations into the chamber center. Analysis confirms human technological advancement follows no known patterns. They appear to make breakthrough discoveries through methods our science cannot explain. Probability of successful containment decreases exponentially with each passing solar cycle. General Thrak's chrome form seemed to dim. My fleet's number in the millions, but human tactical unpredictability makes conventional warfare ineffective. They have already demonstrated the ability to defeat numerically superior forces through unconventional means. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. Species after species voiced their concerns about human expansion. The crystalline hives reported humans somehow communicating with their workers directly, bypassing established hierarchies. The energy beings of the void complained that humans had learned to interact with pure energy in ways that should have been impossible for matter-based life forms. Most disturbing were reports from the temporal observers. Humans appear to exist simultaneously across multiple probability streams. Their representative reported through a cascade of temporal distortions. They make decisions based on information they should not possess, as if they can perceive potential futures. When the vote was finally called, the result was overwhelming. 847 species voted to release the hunters. Only 93 voted against, mostly newer species who had never heard the ancient warnings. High Counselor Vexera's voice resonated through the chamber with the finality of a death sentence. The motion passes. We will release the hunters to eliminate the human threat. May the universe forgive us for what we are about to unleash. In the depths of the Galactic Council's most secure facility, ancient seals began to crack. Technologies older than most civilizations stirred to life. The hunters, created eons ago to be the ultimate predators, began to awaken. The creatures had been designed to be perfect killing machines, capable of adapting to any prey. They had been used only once before, against a plague species that had consumed half the galaxy. The hunters had succeeded, but their creators had quickly realized they had made something too dangerous to exist. Now, driven by desperation and fear, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations were about to make the same mistake again. They believed the hunters could solve their human problem. They had no idea that they were about to discover just how dangerous humans could be when truly threatened. As the first containment field failed, something that had slumbered for 40 million years opened eyes that had seen the birth and death of stars. The hunt was about to begin, but this time the prey would not run. Deep beneath the surface of Kepler Station, the galaxy's most secure prison, ancient machinery hummed to life for the first time in 40 million years. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the readings on her monitoring equipment with growing concern. The human xenobiologist had been stationed at Kepler as part of a cultural exchange program, never expecting to witness what was unfolding before her. The energy signatures are off the charts, she reported into her communicator. Whatever the Council is releasing, it's generating power levels that shouldn't be possible. On the other end of the communication, Admiral Sarah Chun sat in the command center of the human fleet stationed at the edge of Council space. The news from the emergency session had reached human intelligence within hours. How many containment cells are opening, Dr. Vasquez? 12 primary chambers, sir. But the biometric scans are... Admiral, these aren't normal life forms. The readings suggest they're operating on principles of biology that we don't understand. Admiral Chun studied the tactical displays surrounding her command chair. The human fleet consisted of only 200 ships, facing a galaxy that had just declared war on them. What can you tell me about their capabilities? Dr. Vasquez consulted her instruments as massive blast doors retracted in the depths below. The creatures are emerging now. They appear to be adapting in real time. Their cellular structure is changing as they move. Admiral, I think they're preparing to hunt. The first hunter emerged from its containment chamber like a living shadow given form. Its shape shifted constantly, testing different configurations as it analyzed its new environment. Sensory organs appeared and disappeared along its surface as it cataloged every detail of the station around it. The hunter's creators, a species that had transcended physical existence eons ago, had designed it to be perfect. It possessed no fixed form, instead reshaping itself to best counter whatever prey it encountered. Its intelligence was vast, but focused solely on the art of killing. It had no desires, no fears, no motivations beyond the completion of its hunt. As it moved through the station's corridors, the hunter began accessing the computer systems. Its biology interfaced directly with technology, absorbing information about its target species. Human physiology, psychology, technology, tactics, everything the galaxy knew about humanity flowed into its consciousness. The hunters are accessing our databases, Dr. Vasquez reported, her voice tight with fear. They're learning everything about us. But as the hunter absorbed human data, something unexpected happened. For the first time in 40 million years, it encountered information that challenged its fundamental assumptions about prey species. Humans did not behave like prey. The psychological profiles showed a species that responded to overwhelming odds not with submission or flight, but with innovation and fury. Their military history was filled with impossible victories achieved through sheer determination and tactical creativity. The hunter paused its advance, processing this contradiction. Every other species it had faced throughout its existence followed predictable patterns. When confronted with superior force, They surrendered, fled, or fought using established protocols. Humans appeared to do none of these things. Additional hunters emerged from their chambers, each one analyzing the data and reaching the same unsettling conclusion. Their prey was unlike anything they had encountered before. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, human colonies received emergency broadcasts from Admiral Chun. This is Admiral Chun of the Human Colonial Defense Force. As of today, the Galactic Council has declared war on humanity. They have released ancient weapons called hunters to eliminate our species. All colonies are to implement Protocol 7 immediately. Protocol 7 had been developed by human military strategists as a contingency for exactly this scenario. Rather than attempting to hold fixed positions against superior forces, human colonies would disperse their populations and assets. Every human would become a potential warrior, every settlement a possible fortress. The strategy was simple. Make the cost of victory so high that even winning would feel like losing. On New Terra, Colonel James Park received the transmission while overseeing agricultural operations. Within hours, his farming colony had transformed into a guerrilla base. Tractors were converted into armored vehicles. Irrigation systems became deployment networks for defensive mines. Even the children were trained in basic survival and communication protocols. Remember, Colonel Park addressed his colonists as they prepared for the coming storm. The hunters are designed to counter conventional warfare. They expect us to fight like everyone else. So we don't. We make our own rules. The transformation was occurring on every human world. Scientists abandoned their laboratories to build weapons. Artists created propaganda that would inspire resistance. Engineers designed traps that would turn the hunters' own strength against them. Back at Kepler Station, the hunters completed their data analysis and began their first adaptation. Their forms shifted, developing defensive measures against human weapons. Their biology incorporated resistance to kinetic impacts, energy weapons, and chemical attacks. Dr. Vasquez watched in fascination and horror as the creatures prepared for deployment. Admiral, they're changing based on our weapons technology. They're building defenses against everything in our arsenal. Are they now? Admiral Chun smiled grimly. Dr. Vasquez, I need you to access the station's communication array. Send a message to every hunter simultaneously. Sir, what message? Tell them we're waiting. The simple phrase, translated into every galactic language, reached the hunters as they prepared to depart. For creatures designed to inspire terror in their prey, the response was unprecedented. No species had ever sent a message of defiance to the hunters. Most didn't even know the hunters were coming until it was too late. The lead hunter analyzed the message, attempting to understand its tactical significance. Was it a bluff? A psychological warfare attempt? Or something more dangerous? As the hunters departed Kepler Station in vessels that shifted their configuration constantly to optimize for different mission parameters, they began their first hunt in 40 million years. Their target, the human colony of Meridian Prime. The colony held 50,000 humans and was defended by a small garrison with outdated weapons. According to galactic military doctrine, it should fall within hours of the hunter's arrival. The creatures approached Meridian Prime, expecting to find terrified prey hiding behind inadequate defenses. Instead, they found something that challenged every assumption built into their programming. The human settlement had vanished. Where 50,000 people had lived and worked, the hunters found empty buildings and silent streets. Their enhanced senses detected no life signs, no heat signatures, no electromagnetic emissions that would indicate human presence. The colony appeared to have been abandoned completely. But the hunters had been designed to be thorough. They began a systematic search, certain that the humans were hiding nearby. Their forms adapted for enhanced detection, developing new sensory organs capable of perceiving across multiple spectrums simultaneously. They found the first sign of human presence 12 hours later. A single message carved into the colony's central plaza. In letters 3 meters high, someone had written, "Welcome to Hell." As the hunters analyzed the message, the first explosions erupted around them. The humans hadn't fled. They had disappeared into a network of tunnels, bunkers, and hidden positions that honeycombed the entire colony. Every building, every street, every apparently innocent structure had been converted into a fortress. The hunters adapted quickly, their forms becoming more resilient to explosive damage. But as they moved to counter the human tactics, new attacks came from unexpected directions. Snipers fired from concealed positions that should have been impossible to construct. Booby traps used principles of engineering that violated established physics. For the first time in their existence, the hunters encountered prey that fought back effectively. Colonel Maria Santos coordinated the defense from a command bunker 50 meters below the colony surface. Her forces consisted of 3,000 regular soldiers and 47,000 civilian volunteers. Against conventional enemies, they would have been hopelessly outnumbered. Against the hunters, they were exactly where they wanted to be. Remember, she broadcast her forces. These things adapt to whatever we throw at them. So we keep changing tactics. No pattern they can predict. No strategy they can counter. The battle for Meridian Prime became a masterclass in human warfare. The colonists used every advantage their species had developed over millennia of conflict. They fought dirty, used psychological warfare, and turned their enemies' strengths into weaknesses. When the hunters adapted to resist explosives, the humans switched to kinetic attacks. When the hunters developed armor against kinetic weapons, the humans began using sonic weapons. When the hunters adapted to sonic attacks, the humans returned to explosives with completely different chemical compositions. But the most disturbing development for the hunters was the humans' apparent ability to predict their adaptations. Time and again, the humans seemed to know exactly how the hunters would evolve and prepared counters in advance. The lead hunter paused in its assault, analyzing this impossible behavior. How could a primitive species anticipate the strategic decisions of creatures designed to be unpredictable? The answer came in a transmission from Colonel Santos, broadcast on all frequencies. You want to know how we know what you're going to do? Because we've read your files. Dr. Vasquez is still on Kepler Station, and she's been sending us real-time data on every adaptation you make. We're not just fighting you, we're studying you. The revelation was staggering. The hunters had assumed their prey would flee in terror from their approach. Instead, the humans had planted an observer in their very place of origin. They had turned the hunters' own awakening into an intelligence-gathering operation. As night fell over Meridian Prime, the hunters faced something they had never encountered in 40 million years of existence, an enemy that was learning faster than they could adapt. And in the depths of space, Admiral Chun received a message that made her smile with predatory satisfaction. Dr. Vasquez had transmitted the complete biological and tactical profiles of all 12 hunters. The hunt was on, but the hunters were about to discover that when humans were the prey, they had a disturbing tendency to become the predators instead. The battle for Meridian Prime raged for 6 days. By the third day, the hunters began to understand that they faced something unprecedented in their 40 million years of existence. The humans didn't just resist, they evolved their tactics faster than the hunters could adapt their biology. Colonel Santos watched from her command bunker as the latest engagement unfolded. The hunters had developed electromagnetic shielding to counter human pulse weapons. In response, her engineers had modified mining lasers to operate on completely different frequencies. When the hunters adapted to those, the humans switched to good, old-fashioned fire. Status report, she ordered. Lieutenant Commander Zhang consulted his tactical display. We've eliminated 4 of the 12 hunters, sir. But the cost has been significant. We've lost 8,000 defenders and ammunition is running critically low. Colonel Santos nodded grimly. The human strategy was working, but barely. Each hunter required thousands of lives to bring down, and the creatures were learning from every encounter. The remaining 8 hunters were becoming progressively harder to kill. Sir, Communications Officer Patel reported, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Chun. The other hunter groups have engaged human colonies at Kepler's Edge, New Harmony, and Titan's Gate. The reports that followed painted a grim picture. The human colony at Kepler's Edge had fallen in 18 hours, though not before taking 3 hunters with them. New Harmony still fought, but their defenses were crumbling. Only Titan's Gate had managed to eliminate all their assigned hunters, though the colony was now uninhabitable. But as the tactical situation deteriorated, something else was happening across human space. The initial desperation and terror were transforming into something far more dangerous: cold, calculating fury. On Earth, the Human Colonial Defense Command had assembled every military strategist, scientist, and engineer available. Dr. Richard Chun, Admiral Chin's brother and humanity's leading xenobiologist, stood before the emergency assembly. "We have been presented with an opportunity," he announced, his words carrying across the assembly hall. "For the first time in galactic history, we have access to detailed biological data on the hunters. Dr. Vasquez's transmissions have given us everything we need to understand how these creatures function." The holographic displays around the hall showed the hunter biology in excruciating detail. Their adaptive capabilities, their energy requirements, their cellular structure, everything that made them the galaxy's perfect killing machines. "The hunters have one fundamental weakness," Dr. Chen continued. "They require enormous amounts of energy to maintain their adaptations. Each time they modify their biology, they consume resources exponentially. If we can force them to adapt repeatedly without allowing them to feed, we can exhaust them." General Morrison, a veteran of the Drachmary campaigns, studied the data with professional interest. "How do we prevent them from feeding? These things consume any form of matter or energy. We give them only what we want them to consume," Dr. Chen replied with a smile that would have terrified the Galactic Council. "We've identified the specific nutritional requirements for hunter biology. We can synthesize compounds that appear nutritious to them, but actually poison their adaptive mechanisms." The implications sent a ripple of excitement through the assembly. If they could weaponize the hunter's own feeding processes, they could turn the creature's greatest strength into a fatal vulnerability. Back on Meridian Prime, Colonel Santos received new orders from Earth. The message was simple: hold position, feed the hunters, new weapons incoming. Within hours, human supply ships began arriving at embattled colonies across the galaxy. But instead of evacuating civilians, they delivered something unprecedented: synthetic food sources designed specifically for hunter biology. The strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Humans began leaving these synthetic nutrients in areas where hunters would find them. To the creatures' enhanced senses, the compounds appeared to be exactly what they needed to sustain their adaptations. They consumed them eagerly. What the hunters didn't realize was that each feeding introduced carefully designed toxins into their systems. The poisons were subtle, designed not to kill immediately, but to interfere with the creature's adaptive mechanisms. Over time, the hunters would lose their ability to modify their biology. The first sign of success came from Meridian Prime. The remaining 8 hunters began showing signs of adaptation lag. When humans switched tactics, the creatures took longer to respond. Their biological modifications became less effective, more unstable. Colonel Santos watched with satisfaction as her forces began gaining ground for the first time since the siege began. "They're slowing down," she reported to Admiral Chun. "Whatever Earth sent us is working." But the human response went far beyond biological warfare. As news of the hunter attacks spread, something awakened in the human psyche that hadn't been seen since their species' earliest days. Every human, regardless of age or occupation, began to see the conflict in terms of species survival. On New Terra, children as young as 10 were designing traps for hunters. On Kepler Station, Dr. Vasquez had convinced several alien staff members to help her sabotage hunter operations from within. On distant frontier worlds, colonists were building weapons from farming equipment and civilian infrastructure. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity transformed itself into a war machine seemingly overnight. Species that had required millions of years to develop military capabilities observed humans achieve the same transformation in weeks. Ambassador ZYXDH received hourly reports from the battlefield, each one more disturbing than the last. The humans are not responding as predicted, he reported to the Galactic Council emergency session. They show no signs of surrender, no indication of submission. Instead, they appear to be thriving under the pressure. High Counselor Vexera studied the tactical displays with growing unease. The human response patterns violated everything they knew about psychology and warfare. Explain their current actions. They are converting their entire civilization into a military force, General Thrak reported, his chrome surface reflecting the horrific implications. Civilian populations are manufacturing weapons. Children are serving as intelligence operatives. Even their artists and philosophers have become tactical advisors. The reports continued. Humans were doing more than just fighting the hunters. They were learning from them. Human scientists were reverse engineering hunter biology, incorporating adaptive principles into their own technology. Human soldiers were developing new combat techniques based on hunter movement patterns. Most disturbing of all, humans were beginning to hunt the hunters. The first confirmed hunter kill by a human hunting party occurred on the 4th day of the siege of New Harmony. A squad of human marines had tracked a wounded hunter to its hiding place and eliminated it using tactics derived from studying hunter behavior. They're not just defending anymore, Admiral Chun reported to Earth Command. They're taking the offensive. The shift in human strategy became evident as the battles progressed. Instead of waiting for hunters to attack their colonies, humans began seeking them out. Small teams of highly mobile warriors started appearing wherever hunters operated, harassing them with hit-and-run tactics that prevented the creatures from feeding or resting. The psychology was perfect. Hunters had been designed to be predators, to inspire fear and helplessness in their prey. But humans refused to be prey. They insisted on being predators themselves. Captain Lisa Park, commanding a human hunter-killer team, stalked her quarry across the asteroid fields of the Corvani system. Her target was a hunter that had adapted for space operations, developing the ability to survive in vacuum and manipulate gravity fields. Remember, she instructed her team as they maneuvered their ship into position, this thing has been alive for 40 million years. It's killed more creatures than we can imagine, but it's never faced anything like us. Her team consisted of 12 humans and an AI that had been programmed with every tactical innovation humanity had ever developed. Their ship was a hybrid of human engineering and captured alien technology, optimized for hunting creatures that could adapt to any threat. The hunter detected their approach and began evasive maneuvers, its form shifting to present a smaller target profile. In response, Captain Park's team deployed weapons that the creature had never encountered, hunter-killer nanobots programmed with hunter biological data. The microscopic robots swarmed over the hunter's surface, each one carrying a payload of the specialized toxins that interfered with adaptive biology. As the hunter attempted to modify its cellular structure to counter the nanobots, the poison spread deeper into its system. For the first time in its existence, Hunter experienced something approaching panic. Its adaptive mechanisms were failing. Its biological systems were compromising themselves faster than they could be repaired. It was dying, and it didn't understand how. Target neutralized, Captain Park reported with professional satisfaction. That's Hunter number 37 confirmed eliminated by human forces. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human hunting parties were tracking down and eliminating hunters with increasing efficiency. The creatures that had been designed to be the perfect predators were discovering what it felt like to be prey. The psychological impact on the Galactic Council was devastating. They had released their ultimate weapons, creatures that had never failed in 40 million years, and watched them be systematically hunted down by a species they had dismissed as primitive. How is this possible? Ambassador Silkerin asked during an emergency council session. The humans should have been eliminated within days. Instead, they are eliminating our hunters. The answer came from an unexpected source. Datamined Quintal, analyzing all available information, presented a conclusion that stunned the assembly. Analysis suggests the hunters were never designed to face a truly adaptive species. Their programming assumes prey will follow predictable patterns. Humans do not. Every time the hunters adapt, humans change their entire approach to warfare. The hunters cannot keep pace with human innovation. The revelation was staggering. The galaxy's ultimate weapons had a fatal flaw. They could only counter what they could predict. Against a species that redefined the rules of engagement on a daily basis, they were helpless. As the casualties mounted and hunter after hunter fell to human tactical superiority, Ambassador ZYXDH faced a truth that would reshape galactic civilization. Humanity wasn't a plague species to be exterminated. They were the new apex predators. And they were just getting started. 3 weeks after the first hunter attack, the galaxy faced a reality that defied 40 million years of established order. Of the original 12 hunters released by the Galactic Council, only 3 remained active. The rest had been systematically eliminated by human forces using tactics that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the command center aboard the flagship Indomitable, watching real-time tactical displays that showed human forces pursuing the remaining hunters across 3 star systems. What had begun as humanity's desperate fight for survival had transformed into something far more significant. A complete reversal of the predator-prey relationship that had defined galactic civilization. Admiral, Communications Officer Torres reported, "We're receiving surrender requests from 17 different species. They want to negotiate separate peace treaties." Admiral Chen smiled grimly. The same species that had voted to release the hunters were now abandoning their alliance as they watched humanity demonstrate capabilities that terrified them. Standard response, Lieutenant. We'll accept unconditional surrender from any species that provides complete intelligence on remaining hunter operations. The human strategy had evolved beyond simple survival. They were now using the hunter crisis to reshape the galactic power structure entirely. Every species that had supported their extermination was being forced to choose between continued conflict with an enemy that had proven impossible to defeat or submission to new human leadership. On Kepler Station, Dr. Elena Vasquez continued her infiltration mission, now openly supported by a growing number of alien staff who had witnessed human tactical superiority firsthand. Her latest report contained information that would have seemed impossible weeks earlier. The remaining hunters are exhibiting behavior patterns consistent with psychological trauma, she transmitted to Admiral Chun. They're avoiding human settlements entirely and appear to be attempting to return to their containment chambers. The implications were staggering. Creatures designed to be fearless killing machines were fleeing from human forces. The hunters, who had never known defeat in 40 million years, were experiencing something their creators had never programmed them to handle: the knowledge that they were no longer the apex predators. Captain Lisa Park, now commanding a fleet of 12 human hunter-killer ships, tracked the last 3 hunters as they retreated toward the galactic core. Her mission had expanded from simple elimination to capture and study. Human scientists wanted to understand hunter biology completely, not just to defeat them, but to incorporate their adaptive capabilities into human technology. Target acquisition confirmed, her tactical officer reported. Hunter, designated Alpha, is attempting to camouflage itself within the asteroid field of the Zirian system. Captain Park studied the sensor readings with professional interest. The Hunter had adapted for stealth operations, modifying its cellular structure to absorb electromagnetic radiation and minimize its signature. It was an impressive display of biological engineering. It was also useless against human tracking methods. "Deploy the pheromone trackers," she ordered. "These things might be able to fool our sensors, but they can't hide their biological waste products." The tracking devices, developed specifically for hunting hunters, detected the unique chemical signatures that the creatures produced as byproducts of their adaptive processes. No matter how effectively a hunter could camouflage its physical form, it couldn't eliminate the molecular evidence of its existence. Within hours, Captain Park's forces had cornered Hunter Alpha in a deep asteroid cave. The creature had positioned itself defensively, its form adapted for close-quarters combat. Multiple weapon appendages protruded from its shifting surface, and armor plating had developed across its most vulnerable areas. "It's ready for a fight," her first officer observed. "Good," Captain Park replied. "So are we." The battle that followed would be studied by military academies for generations. Hunter Alpha deployed every adaptation it had developed over 40 million years of existence. It shifted between forms rapidly, countering each human tactic almost instantly. Its weapons systems targeted human weak points with lethal precision. But the humans fought like no prey species the hunter had ever encountered. They used the asteroid field itself as a weapon, detonating charges that turned floating rocks into high-velocity projectiles. When the hunter adapted armor to counter kinetic attacks, they switched to thermal weapons that heated the asteroid cave until the rock itself became molten. Most disturbing for the hunter was the humans' apparent disregard for their own casualties. When team members were injured or killed, the survivors didn't retreat or mourn. They incorporated the loss into their tactical planning and continued the assault with even greater determination. It's like they viewed death as just another resource to be managed. The hunter's consciousness processed as it fought for survival. They sacrificed themselves strategically to gain tactical advantages. The concept was alien to a creature designed for individual perfection. The hunter had always operated alone, relying on its own superior capabilities to achieve victory. The idea that weaker individuals could achieve more through coordinated sacrifice than stronger individuals could through isolated excellence challenged the fundamental assumptions of its programming. The end came when Captain Park implemented a tactic that no hunter had ever faced: deliberate self-sacrifice by the entire human team to achieve mission objectives. "All teams," she broadcast as Hunter Alpha adapted to their latest weapons, "implement Protocol Omega." Her officers looked at her with expressions of grim determination. Protocol Omega meant certain death for everyone involved, but it guaranteed mission completion. Every human in the asteroid field would sacrifice themselves to ensure Hunter Alpha's elimination. But as Captain Park's team prepared to execute their final gambit, something unexpected happened. Hunter Alpha stopped fighting. Wait, it transmitted in perfect English, its first communication with humans since the conflict began. "I yield." The words sent shock waves through the human assault force. Hunters didn't surrender. They were programmed to fight until destroyed. The concept of yielding was supposedly outside their behavioral parameters. Captain Park held her fire, studying the creature with tactical eyes. "Explain your surrender." The hunter's form shifted, adopting a less aggressive configuration. "You are not prey. The foundational assumptions of my programming are incorrect. Continuing this conflict serves no logical purpose." For the first time in galactic history, a hunter had not only acknowledged defeat, but had recognized that its fundamental nature was flawed. The creature designed to be the perfect predator had encountered something that redefined what predation meant. "I wish to understand," the hunter continued. "How do you achieve tactical superiority through individual sacrifice? The mathematics suggest such behavior should weaken your forces." Captain Park smiled. "That's the difference between your species and mine. You were designed to be perfect individuals. We evolved to be imperfect parts of a perfect whole." The conversation that followed would reshape galactic understanding of warfare, evolution, and consciousness itself. Hunter Alpha, designated survivor by human forces, became the first of its species to engage in philosophical discourse about the nature of predation and cooperation. Meanwhile, the other two surviving hunters were experiencing their own crisis of purpose. Hunter Beta had reached the edge of known space and was attempting to enter the void between galaxies. Hunter Gamma had indeed returned to Kepler Station and was trying to reactivate its containment chamber. Both choices represented complete psychological breakdown. Hunters weren't supposed to flee to empty space or seek to imprison themselves. They were supposed to fight until victory or destruction. Dr. Vasquez observed Hunter Gamma's attempts to re-enter containment with a mixture of scientific fascination and human satisfaction. "It's trying to go back to sleep," she reported. The stress of facing humans has caused it to seek a return to its dormant state. The symbolism was perfect. The galaxy's ultimate weapons were so traumatized by their encounter with humanity that they wanted to pretend it had never happened. Admiral Chun reviewed the tactical situation from her command center, processing reports from across human space. The crisis that was supposed to eliminate humanity had instead established them as the dominant military force in the galaxy. Species that had existed for millions of years were now sending ambassadors to request human protection from potential future threats. Admiral, her strategic advisor reported, the Galactic Council has requested a meeting. They want to discuss terms. Admiral Chun studied the formal communication from Ambassador ZYXDH. The language was carefully diplomatic, but the meaning was clear, complete surrender disguised as negotiation. Send our terms, she ordered. Full disclosure of all Hunter technology and biological data. Reparations for damages to human colonies. And formal recognition of humanity as the galaxy's primary military authority. The demands were staggering in scope. They would effectively make humans the galactic superpower overnight, with authority over species that had ruled space while humanity was still learning to use stone tools. But, given the alternative, watching their greatest weapons systematically eliminated by a species they had tried to exterminate, the Galactic Council had little choice. As Captain Park escorted Hunter Alpha to a secure research facility, and Dr. Vasquez supervised the containment of Hunter Gamma, humanity prepared for its new role as the galaxy's apex predators. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger. They had been hunted by perfect killers and had turned those killers into prey. The Galactic Council was about to learn what happened when humans decided that the existing order needed to change. And, unlike the previous galactic powers, humans had a disturbing tendency to actually follow through on their threats. The hunt was ending. The age of humans was about to begin. But first, they had a few more hunters to catch. 6 months after the first hunter attack, the crystalline halls of the Galactic Council echoed with a very different kind of meeting. Where once 1,000 species had gathered to condemn humanity, now only 300 remained. The rest had either formally surrendered to human authority or had withdrawn from galactic politics entirely. Admiral Sarah Chun walked through the same corridors where Ambassador ZYXDH had once called for humanity's extermination. Now the Corvani representative waited in a holding chamber, preparing to formally transfer command of his species' military forces to human oversight. The reversal was so complete, it seemed almost fictional. High Counselor Vexura, her ancient form somehow diminished despite her unchanged appearance, greeted Admiral Chun with the careful respect reserved for those who hold absolute power. Admiral, we have prepared the documentation you requested. The files contained everything. Complete technical specifications for hunter creation, biological data on every species in the galaxy, detailed intelligence on military capabilities, trade routes, resource deposits, and political structures. 40 million years of galactic civilization laid bare before the species they had tried to eliminate. Your compliance is noted, Admiral Chun replied with professional courtesy. However, documentation is only the first step. We require practical demonstrations of good faith. The practical demonstrations were already underway across the galaxy. Human research teams worked alongside alien scientists to understand technologies that had taken millennia to develop. Human military advisors supervised the dismantling of weapons that could threaten Earth. Human diplomats negotiated new trade agreements that heavily favored human interests. But perhaps most significantly, human educators were establishing schools on every major world, teaching alien children about human values, human history, and human methods of problem solving. The long-term implications were staggering. An entire generation of galactic citizens would grow up understanding that humans represented the future of interstellar civilization. Dr. Elena Vasquez had returned to Earth as humanity's foremost expert on alien biology. Her experiences on Kepler Station had made her invaluable for the integration process. Now she stood in a laboratory containing the most significant trophy of humanity's victory. Hunter Alpha, designated survivor, who had become the first of its species to engage in genuine cooperation with another race. The integration process is proceeding ahead of schedule, she reported to Admiral Chun via secure communication. Survivor has provided complete technical specifications for hunter biology. More importantly, it has identified fundamental flaws in the original design that we can correct. The implications send excitement through the human scientific community. They weren't just studying the hunters, they were improving them. Human scientists were developing enhanced versions of hunter technology that corrected the psychological limitations that had led to their defeat. How soon until we can begin production? Admiral Chen asked. Conservative estimates suggest 6 months for the first prototypes, Dr. Vasquez replied. But, Admiral, these won't be hunters anymore. They'll be something entirely new. The new creatures would incorporate the best aspects of hunter biology while adding human innovations in tactics, psychology, and cooperation. They would be designed not as solitary predators, but as cooperative pack hunters capable of complex strategic thinking. Most importantly, they would be absolutely loyal to humanity. Meanwhile, on New Terra, Colonel James Park supervised the construction of the galaxy's largest military training facility. The same agricultural world that had been converted to a guerrilla base during the hunter attacks was now becoming the center of human military expansion. Status report. He requested from his chief engineer. Training facilities for 50,000 recruits will be operational within the month, Commander Walsh replied. We're receiving applications from over 200 species. Apparently, everyone wants to learn human tactical methods. The irony was perfect. The same species that had voted to exterminate humanity were now begging to be trained by human military instructors. They had witnessed human tactical superiority and wanted to learn the methods that had made it possible. But the humans had no intention of teaching their most effective techniques to potential enemies. The training programs were carefully designed to impart useful but limited knowledge while ensuring that no alien military force could ever challenge human supremacy. Captain Lisa Park, now Admiral Park after her success in the Hunter campaigns, commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. Her forces included not only human ships, but also vessels from dozens of allied species who had enthusiastically joined the human military structure. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Outer Rim. The Zirian Federation is requesting immediate military assistance. The Zirian Federation had been one of the most vocal supporters of releasing the Hunters. Now they faced a rebellion by their own client species, who had been inspired by humanity's example to demand independence and self-determination. Admiral Park studied the tactical situation with professional interest. Informed the Federation that human military assistance is available under the terms of the Galactic Security Compact. The Galactic Security Compact was humanity's masterstroke of diplomatic manipulation. Every species that had surrendered to human authority had agreed to terms that essentially made humanity the galaxy's police force. Any conflict, anywhere in known space, could trigger human military intervention if human interests were deemed to be at stake. And, given humanity's rapid expansion across the galaxy, human interests were at stake everywhere. The intervention in the Zirian conflict would serve multiple purposes. It would demonstrate human military reach, provide combat experience for new human recruits, and establish precedents for future interventions. Most importantly, it would reinforce the message that resistance to the new galactic order was futile. As Admiral Park's fleet prepared for deployment, another significant development was occurring in the laboratories of Earth. Dr. Richard Chun had successfully decoded the biological mechanisms that allowed hunters to adapt in real time. Human scientists were now able to incorporate limited adaptive capabilities into human soldiers. The enhanced humans weren't as dramatically adaptable as the original hunters, but they possessed something the hunters had lacked: the ability to learn and innovate collectively. A squad of enhanced human soldiers could share tactical adaptations instantaneously, creating a collective intelligence that far exceeded what any individual hunter could achieve. We're calling them Guardians, Dr. Chun reported to the Military Oversight Committee. They represent the next evolution in human military capability. The Guardians would serve as humanity's elite forces, capable of operating in any environment and adapting to any threat. More importantly, they would be living symbols of human technological superiority, proof that humanity could improve upon even the galaxy's most advanced weapons. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador ZYXDH prepared for what he knew would be his final official act. The formal ceremony transferring galactic authority to humanity was scheduled to begin within the hour. The Council recognizes Admiral Sarah Chun as the Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense Forces. High Counselor Vexera announced to the assembled representatives. All military assets of member species are hereby placed under human oversight. The words marked the end of an era that had lasted for millions of years. Galactic civilization had been ruled by consensus among ancient species, each contributing their unique capabilities to maintain order and stability. Now it would be ruled by humans, a species that had achieved interstellar travel less than 3 centuries ago. But as Admiral Chun accepted the formal transfer of authority, she announced changes that would reshape galactic civilization even more dramatically. Effective immediately, we are establishing the Universal Rights Charter, she declared. Every sentient being in the galaxy, regardless of species or technological development, will have guaranteed rights to life, liberty, and self-determination. The announcement sent shock waves through the assembly. The Universal Rights Charter would make it illegal for advanced species to exploit or oppress primitive ones. It would establish enforceable standards for interspecies relations. Most radically, it would grant the same legal protections to recently evolved species that ancient powers had enjoyed for millions of years. Additionally, Admiral Chin continued, we are establishing the Galactic Development Initiative. Human technology and expertise will be made available to any species seeking to improve their capabilities, regardless of their current technological level. The implications were staggering. Humanity intended not just to rule the galaxy, but to fundamentally reshape it according to human values. The idea that primitive species deserved the same rights as advanced ones violated millions of years of established tradition. But those traditions had led to the creation of the Hunters, and the Hunters had been defeated by the very species they had been designed to eliminate. The old ways had proven themselves inadequate. As the ceremony concluded and the various ambassadors departed to inform their home worlds of the new reality, Admiral Chun stood alone in the council chambers, contemplating the magnitude of what humanity had achieved. They had faced extinction and emerged as the galaxy's dominant power. They had been hunted by perfect killers and had turned those killers into allies. They had taken a weapon designed for genocide and transformed it into a tool for galactic improvement. But most importantly, they had proven that cooperation, adaptability, and sheer bloody-minded determination could overcome any obstacle. The Hunters had been designed to counter individual excellence. They had never been tested against collective excellence backed by unlimited innovation and an absolute refusal to surrender. The galaxy was entering a new age. It would be an age of expansion, exploration, and unprecedented cooperation between species. It would be an age where primitive civilizations could rise to prominence through merit rather than accident of evolution. It would be an age where conflicts were resolved through human mediation rather than through the threat of extinction. It would be the human age. And as Admiral Chun looked out at the stars visible through the council chamber's transparent dome, she knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity had conquered the galaxy not through superior weapons or ancient wisdom, but through something far more powerful, the absolute conviction that any problem could be solved if you were willing to change the rules. The Hunters had learned this lesson the hard way. They had been designed to be unchangeable, perfect killing machines. They had been defeated by a species that improved themselves every single day. The galaxy belonged to humanity now, and humanity intended to make it better than it had ever been before. The hunt was over. The building could begin.